Hello, I'm Keith Kreischer, the Executive Director of the IoT M2M Council, or IMC, here with my good friend and colleague, Renil Paramel, Principal with Strategy of Things Group. Renil's here to talk to us today about the intersection of AI and IoT technologies. Renil, welcome.
Thank you, Keith. It's a pleasure to be here.
Talk to us about generative AI. You know, what is it? How is it different from other AI approaches? As just sort of a starter for the folks out there.
Sure. So traditional AI, as we know it, it basically is very good at analyzing and predicting information, but it's largely based on predefined rules or kind of data that you train it on. It doesn't necessarily create new content. Generative AI, on the other hand, creates new content. So it can create new text, it can create new videos, new image files, all sorts of new content that otherwise was not possible in the old world. That's a significant difference when you can create new content versus pre-training something to do just that.
Right.
So that's the number one fundamental difference between Gen AI versus traditional AI.
Is that how Gen AI is different from other AI approaches like machine learning and deep learning? I mean, it sounds like.
Generative AI also uses deep learning and machine learning, but its uniqueness is that it allows you to conversate with it. So the conversational element of it, where humans can interact in the natural language that you and I talk. So as an example, in the old world, you wanted to get some value out of IoT data, you would literally need to force fit and figure out what that value is. But in the Gen AI world, you could potentially ask, hey, what are the value that I can actually get out of this? And Gen AI, because of its large amount of data that it has, may suggest to you that, hey, based on your data, I think these 3 or 4 areas where you could unlock value. That's a huge thing. You don't need an engineer to do that today.
Right. What can generative AI do for IoT? I mean, how is it specifically impacting connected devices?
Great question. So, when we were using IoT in the past, we did a good job of putting sensors, connecting them ubiquitously to the right cloud network, sending data out there, maybe even showing something on a dashboard. But nobody really went to the next step of what do you do with that data? What action do I need to take? What should I change about what I was doing before? That's where generative AI kicks in. Because of its natural language capabilities, because of its ability to summarize, content create and things like that, you now have a unique opportunity where you can take operational data, which comes in the form of streaming data or traditional data, and then you can contextualize it with text data, saying that, hey, this is what this policy means, or these are the mandated requirements, or these are the exceptions. When you start intersecting human-like conversations for policy data with transactional data, you're going to unlock stuff that you never were able to do before. Right. That's the fundamental difference.
Right. The intersection of AI and IoT, you hear the phrase AIoT a lot these days. I'm not so crazy about it, I got to say. But do you have some examples where AI is already
absolutely. So,
impacting
if we were taking the example of, say, smart cities, so traditional AI would be able to tell you how congestion control is progressing, or it could predict to you what congestion control might be in the future. But if you want to do things like scenario planning, like if I moved traffic here, or if I moved something there, that's where generative AI can kick in. You can ask it questions that are very identical to what a leader would be doing in the city, and you would get solutions. So that's a good example of how in a smart city environment that is there. Now I can give you another example of, say you and I as a user, we have our thermostats, smart thermostats. It kind of manages how energy is consumed. But let's say we want to set a schedule saying that, hey, I'm going to come home on Monday and Thursday at 8 o'clock at night, so I only want my energy use to be kicked in at that time. Well, you can conversate and set it up versus trying to figure out how this should now change temperature or not change temperature.
Right.
So these are 2 examples of how at a smart city level somebody could use Gen AI, and at a consumer level someone could use Gen AI.
Right, good examples. What are some of the challenges in applying Gen AI?
Yes, so while traditional AI was very good at giving you specific results, generative AI relies a lot on semantic and keyword kind of information as part of its architecture and the way it works. So data becomes a big issue because IoT data, there's a lot of unstructured data, structured data, there's a lot of frequency of data coming in. A lot of the data that comes in requires you to take real-time decisioning, which may not be conducive for Gen AI. while GenAI was really good, it has reasoning capabilities, it has capabilities to summarize and create content. It's not always instantaneous.
Right.
So that data part can become a challenge. Now, along the same line, latency is an issue. So while most IoT applications require you to do things real time, so I give you data, I want an action right now, or I want to find out if I can do something right now, Gen AI may not completely support you there. So there's some things that needs to be worked out. Right. And then finally, integration. So when you start looking at IoT, we aren't talking about 1 or 2 or 3 sensors or devices. It could be thousands, it could be millions. So if you start applying generative AI on top of a data set that's for millions of devices, you need to architect that solutioning slightly different. It may not be as simple as let's load a file into ChatGPT or equivalent of a ChatGPT model and see what happens. Right. So those are some preliminary things that we're seeing right now as challenges.
Great. It's very clear. So let's bring it home. How does your group, Strategy Things, help people apply Gen AI to IoT applications?
Thank you for asking that question. So we've been doing work in the smart cities and IoT space for the last 6-7 years. We have brought to life the concept of creating an innovation lab. We brought an ecosystem of partners together to do a lot of interesting things. We would like to apply the same principle for AI. So we are introducing a 0 to 3 months pilot program in Gen AI for folks who are interested to check it out. And we are targeting 2 sets of customers. We're targeting IoT customers who are trying to struggle and figure out, hey, what can we really do with this? And most people are kind of reluctant because either they don't know what to do with it, or the skills to do that is very difficult, or the initial setup and environment to see visible results are difficult. We want to kind of help with that. So we are creating a 4-phase program where in phase 1, we would kind of focus on helping our clients understand the difference between traditional AI and Gen AI. In phase 2, we would go in and say, these are the subdomains based on your industry, whether you're in oil and gas or retail or transportation. These are the use cases that have substantially received some maturity out here. And within those use cases, these are potential tasks that we can add Gen AI to kind of solve your problems. Right. In phase 3, we would then say, okay, once you've identified an example or candidate use case and task, you have the data set to do this, because at the end of the day, AI isn't about AI's capability. AI is all about data. So if you want to solve something, you have the right data. Some of it may be proprietary data, some of it may be data external to you. So we have created a number of different solution architectures to incorporate both of that. If you want to keep proprietary data in-house, we have a model for that. If you want to use custom from outside, we have a model for that. And finally, in the 4th stage, we'll help the client actually deploy a simple use case in a pilot mode so that they actually see that this thing works with their data, with their context. So 0 to pilot in 3 months. If you're waiting, we're there to help you out.
Right. Hey, we're at CES. We're covered in IoT and AI. Any closing thoughts on the show and your week here?
Yeah, so my kind of forecast or prediction for 2025 is that this is the year of cobots, collaboration robots. So I believe that IoT, AI, robotics are all going to converge this year, and we're going to see a lot of different avenues of AI being used both at the consumer level, enterprise level, and potentially at the machine level. So I'm very excited about how things are going, and I hope we get to see more such innovations happening around us.
Hey man, I'm dizzy. So Renil Paramel, my good colleague from Strategy Things Group. I'm Keith Fleischer from IMC. Renil, great seeing you.